Hello, everybody. Uh, I'm Wojciech Kasie. I am now at the Aarhus University as a postdoctoral fellow in the project Social Dynamics in the Ancient Mediterranean, but at the same time, I am also affiliated to the Department of Philosophy at the University of West Bohemia. I am a scholar of religion, of ancient Christianity. By my background, in most recent years, I turned to do more computational digital stuff, digital humanities, computational social science, agent-based modeling, network analysis, and most recently also some text mining, quantitative text analysis. What I want to do now here is to introduce you a project in progress. It is a collaborative project, but I will introduce here my part, one article in preparation, uh, and I will start by explaining some theoretical rationale behind the project, uh, then move to the methods, to the data, to the methods, and hopefully I will also be able to show you some very preliminary data and hope that I will get from you some useful feedback how to make the article stronger and how to also in what direction to turn with the project in the future. So the theoretical background is an ongoing debate in the field of cultural evolution concerning cultural evolution of religions. What are actually the crucial factors for some changes we observe in the development of religion over the last couple of millennia, uh, when we focus on the view of human history and focus on the history of religion over last, let's say, 12,000 of years, we see a lot of changes in how human societies work, how they evolved over time, and we see that this is also somehow associated with some changes in religion, when we observe some increase in of moralizing elements of religion. Some people even speak about moralizing religions, which would be religious traditions characterized by high emphasis upon morality. And one common feature of these religions, yeah, is a belief in moralizing deities, powerful moralizing deities, which revert and punish human behavior from a moral standpoint. Uh, in this debate, there is one hypothesis which might be called affluence hypothesis, which is anchored in life history theory and which associates the cultural evolution of religion and the emergence of moralizing religions and emergence of moralizing deities with economic development. What is life history theory? Life history theory comes from evolutionary biology. It was originally invented to describe differences across species, but more recently it has been also applied to describe uh, differences within a species, within a population, where some individuals adopt what can be called slow life history strategy, while others develop rather fast life history strategy. What it is? Fast strategies in, on the on the general level means that the individual, the organism, uh, has as soon as possible as many offsprings as possible. That's the most common aspect of that, but it's not the only one. It seems that adoption of fast strategies is also correlated with very specific psychological mindset. For instance, that people who adopt fast strategy have offspring sooner and so on, tend to be more impulsive, uh, be more involved in dangerous behavior, and their time horizon is in general much shorter, and they invest much less in cooperation and so on. So the question is, when we observe the human cultural evolution for last couple of last 12 millennia, we see a high variation in the level of affluence of different societies. And the question is how much of what would be the impact of these changes in this environment upon this the adoption of these strategies in different populations. The key variable in life history theory is the changing environment. While in a harsh environment, people tend to adopt the fast life history strategy, in an affluent environment, individuals tend to adopt this slower life history strategy. This has been extended, especially in respect to religion, on these three behavioral preference traits. One is extended prosociality, that people from more affluent environment tend to be more operate in broader social network, tend to focus on restricted social sexuality, and tend to be involved in more delayed gratification. And it especially means that people who are living in affluent environment adopt slow life history strategy, tend also to form beliefs in deities which somehow care more about cooperation, which are somehow moralizing, tend to develop practices of asceticism, and tend to develop belief of afterlife, and especially associate afterlife beliefs with morality as well. There is an ongoing debate about this affluence hypothesis and its potential for culture evolutionary scholarship, culture evolution of religion. The hypothesis has been especially advocated and has been developed and advocated by Nicolas Baumard and his collaborators from Paris. They published one very ambitious article in Current Biology in 2015, Increased Affluence Explains the Emergence of Ascetic Wisdom and Moralizing Religions, in which they introduced some comparative historical evidence in support of the view that actually most affluent societies of the past developed these moralizing religions. And they also use the term axial age from Karl Jaspers to somehow describe this phenomenon historically. But it was widely criticized, most importantly by Ben Purzitsky and team from University of British Columbia, and also by team led by Peter Turchin at Oxford around the Seshad historical database, in an article published by Daniel Mullins. These critics actually focus on the fact that affluence hypothesis predicts that moralizing religions in the ancient Mediterranean should develop before advent of Christianity, should develop actually, especially in classical Greece. Against that, Mullins argues that actually it was Christianity what introduced a stronger moralizing component than any previous local religions, and that actually Greek religion was very stable and was not at all moralizing, that Greek religious ideologies did not have stressed universalizing or moralizing precepts in any significant way, and Greek gods were certainly not omniscience, and crucially did not much care about what Greek people did from a moral standpoint. This is in the core of Mullins' criticism of what Nicolas Baumard and his colleagues say about the implications of the affluence hypothesis. So here I want to explore this quantitatively, whether Mullins is right or not, or whether it's rather the case as promoted by advocates of the affluent hypothesis. So I am interested in diachronic changes in time, in the understanding of God in ancient Greek texts from 8th century BC to 4th century CE, and my prediction is, or the prediction derived from affluence hypothesis, is that terms for God will be most strongly associated with morality in texts from most affluent environment. So, how to measure affluence? It might surprise someone that actually, when we look at economic development of some states, of some areas, we see there not only a permanent increase over time, but we see there also some substantial decrease. That's something what we see very well here, and for the area which was under control of Greek city-states in antiquity, which actually were much more affluent in the classical period, in the period of classical Greece, 4th and 5th century BC, than in the Middle Ages, and that's actually the values comparable to the ancient level of affluence were again reached only at the beginning of the 20th century. So that could really have some implications for adoption of life history strategies. What might be a little bit more controversial, and but it's also based on a solid scholarship, is what we see on the right side, is this comparison of urbanism, which is also a good proxy for affluence. And here we see actually that classical Greece was much more urbanized than the Roman Empire. That the comparable level of urbanization we observe in ancient Greece can be only observed in England at the beginning of the 19th century. So this could also have some implication for adoption of life history strategies and cultural evolution. So here is some overview of the proxy data for affluence and social complexity I have in my project now. Here is some figure demonstrating it on time axis. The blue line is the development index for classical Greece. It does not. I use it only for the period before the Common Era, because it's actually relevant for Greece and not for the Roman Empire. And while in my ancient Greek texts there are also texts from the Roman Empire. But what's crucial is here are actually the textual data. The textual data in which we could measure actually the representation of God and how it is changing over time, and actually how it is changing in respect to association with morality. For that purpose, I use the corpus lemmatized ancient Greek text, which is not only lemmatized but includes also morphological tagging. And this corpus combines data from Perseus Digital Library, 1,000 years of Greek dataset and TLG dataset, and it has been published on GitHub by Open Greek and Latin project a couple of years ago. And it includes about 25 million words after some cleaning, when we only focus on texts from 8th century BC to 4th century CE, and only on texts which can be classified as either pagan or Christian. We have 15 million words. Among them, we can focus only on nouns and adjectives, which is about 4 millions from that. Here is some diachronical distribution of the text. Now to the methods. All of the analysis of the text and also the comparison with the proxies have been implemented using Python 3, relying on Google Colaboratory, cloud computing facilities, Jupyter notebooks, and in the form of Jupyter notebooks. And the most important important Python libraries for me are definitely Pandas for data manipulation. All of the data have been analyzed as data frames. NLTK for extraction of concordances and doing other natural language processing stuff, and some other libraries also for many other libraries for statistical modeling and visualization. I rely here on a full integration of Google Colaboratory, Google Drive, and Google Sheets, so I can very easily share my data, my scripts, my figures with anyone. The actual study design has been pre-registered using Open Science Framework with what I hope give me some higher chance to publish get it published in a good journal, because in that way I can reasonable avoid to be criticized from some cherry picking, because I just started with the lists which are registered. So how I proceed with that? For each document in the dataset, I extracted the concordance rows surrounding the key term. The key term in our case is TIOS for gut. And the concordance windows I was using were in the size of 7, but later on I also plan to adopt to replicate the same with different window size. That means that from the term TIOS I extracted 3 terms on the left side. From each occurrence of the term TIOS I extracted 3 terms on the left side and 3 terms on the right side. And for each term, this way in the document, this way extracted, I quantified a mutual information. That means I quantify the probability that this terms appears in the concordance data, which is basically term frequency, compared term frequency in the concordances in comparison to these terms, the term TIOS and the target term appearing independently in the texts. Having this, I also have the text, as you see here, I also have the text with automatic translations, all the terms. I use the Moral Foundation Dictionary created by Jesse Graham and Jonathan Haidt, and one particular category of moral terms there, general positive moral terms in this Moral Foundation Dictionary. And in that way I actually measured, counted all terms which can be somehow qualified as falling into this moral category, and from them I summarized the mutual information, and this summary sum of mutual informations of moral terms in the concordance data for the document has been divided by the number of words in the concordances to normalize it in such a way, and this forms the basis of what I call total moral load of the concept of God in the document. Having this, I could make some very preliminary analysis of the results, and here we see actually the potential linear relationship between the moral load and different proxies. There we see almost nothing for moral load and century, moral load and calories per capita also for almost nothing. But on the bottom side, on the right side, on the bottom, we actually see there is some association between the and the level of development index and the moral load, and also when we look at the extent of affluence. So this somehow can be interpreted as supporting the affluence hypothesis, but it is necessary to do probably some more advanced measurement of the moral load, perhaps using some word embeddings. It would be good to have other proxies as well, some which would enable more robust comparison between the Greek word and the Roman word. And finally, to proceed with employment of linear mixed effect regression models to control for authorship in the models, in the regression models, and to do some model comparison and to actually evaluate what is the best predictor for the trend we observe. And in the future articles, I would like to move behind just representation of God to also to representation of death and afterlife and their moralization. This is something on what we agreed already with Nicolas Baumart to cooperate, and also to move to other more specific data sets like ancient Greek inscriptions, Latin inscriptions, or even to explore the affluence hypothesis with some modern demographic data. So here are some results which were be concluded from the pilot study, which were actually somehow in support of the affluence hypothesis and against the, the competing explanations. Hopefully we come to something similar now. And yeah, now thank you for your attention and looking forward for your questions, comments, and criticism. Have a nice day.